Into the Troll's Lair. My name's Matt Hamilton, otherwise known as Hamato on Twitter. Ever wondered what it'd be like to meet a Bitcoin Twitter troll in person? You've probably come across them on Twitter before, abrasive, opinionated, and generally decrying anything and everything not Bitcoin a scam. They often argue with emotion, but no logic to back up any of their actual arguments. They'll jump from argument to argument, moving around, and no matter how often sometimes you present facts or refute what they're saying, they'll still stick repeatedly to what they're saying. I've always wondered what it would be like to meet and talk to some of these people in real life. Alas, most hide behind pseudonyms online. It's unlikely to really meet them. But I had a chance to at least discuss with a few of them on an audio call the other day. Warning, I do not hold back on the snark on this call. I'm very blunt. I also use some colourful language at times. You'll probably understand why when you start to hear the call. So the other day, there were some Bitcoin trolls on Twitter spreading some misinformation. This started with a common piece of FUD that Ripple seized XRP from a former founder, Jed McCaleb. This particular piece of FUD has been debunked many times, and what actually happened was McCaleb defied a legal agreement with Ripple not to sell his substantial XRP holdings. McCaleb's US dollar funds from the sale were seized by the exchange, Bitstamp, in compliance with a court order. That's something that pretty much any exchange would do, and there's a risk of keeping funds on an exchange. XRP on the XRP ledger cannot be seized by anyone. Just like with Bitcoin, only the holder of the private key can move the funds. In this case, this particular troll, a guy called Mr. Hoddle, actually took issue with David Schwartz, aka Joel Katz, who is one of the chief architects of the XRP ledger, and pretty much actually accusing him of lying and misrepresenting things. So anyway, this particular troll invited me, after I replied back and said that he was implying something malicious, invited me to come and have a chat with him in his, what I later found out to be, own personal little echo chamber with his buddies. And so anyway, I downloaded this Mumble client and went on there for a voice chat with these guys. The audio has not been edited in any way, apart from to remove the preamble at the start, where I was trying to work out how to enable push to talk on the chat surface. So anyway, without further ado, here's the recording of the conversation.
Okay, cool. All right, so got a few questions. Like I said, I don't really know much about Ripple because I just have a fundamental, beef with it. Though, I got into Bitcoin for a certain reason, and once I heard about Ripple in 2012, I just thought of it as a joke, and I just kind of ignored it. And I've been ignoring it basically until today. This is the first time I actually care even about talking about Ripple. So I guess to start, why, as an investor, would I invest in Ripple? Go ahead.
Well, I don't know why you would invest in Ripple. I can tell you why I would invest in Ripple and why I am investing in Ripple.
Ahead.
The reason I'm investing in XRP is I basically want to see a change in the way that financial services are delivered. I think at the moment there is an issue that there are a number of banks that are that have a disproportionate amount of control, and at the moment, if you want to send money from one side of the planet to the other, it can still take 3 or 4 days. And I would like to see that fixed. And XRP and Ripple.
So I get why they would use the platform, but why would they use the XRP token?
In order to send value to the other side of the world.
But you could create tokens on the XRP ledger, right?
You can create IOUs on the ledger, yeah, but they're not assets. They're not like counterparty-free assets. They're just IOUs. So you'd still have to settle them somehow. How would you do that?
All right, that's fine. So you have a company that owns 2/3 of all the XRP, and you want banks around the world to buy up XRP so they could send funds around the world for cheaper?
Basically, yeah.
What makes you think that's going to work? What makes you think, like Ripple has been around since 2012. This is nothing new. It's been a joke this entire time. What makes you think it's not going to be a joke now?
It's not been a joke the entire time. There's been a lot of people like yourselves that misunderstand it and give it a very bad name. There's a lot of people that, as you've seen from this Twitter thread, that are actually incapable of actually reading or comprehending things and that spread a lot of misinformation. And unfortunately, that kind of sort of snowballs on. But these things don't change overnight. You're not going to change the way a banking system works overnight. I mean, if you think about SWIFT, which is one of the main ways in which interbank transfers happen, that is whatever it is, 50, 60 years old now. So these things don't change overnight. But we have
overnight. Bitcoin right now that basically the redistribution of Bitcoin, you can't replicate it because it started at a difficulty of 0 with 0 value. And now you have things like the Lightning Network that could transfer funds across the world for pennies. Why do you need Ripple? Why do you need something that a company has 2/3 of all the coins in circulation?
Because it works.
But at any point in time, that company could get, seized. They're actually right now being sued because someone thinks it's security.
And
if the company's done, and there's absolutely no bank's going to risk using the platform or the token in that sense, why would I risk holding XRP?
Okay, so worst case scenarios, you think that Ripple, the company, could get shut down, and so what?
Well, then if Ripple, the company, gets shut down, it's going to give banks the trust in the platform. No one's going to be working on the platform anymore.
Why wouldn't anybody be working on the platform?
Because they just got shut down. You have basically the founders of XRP, of Ripple, getting shut down.
And why does that stop anybody else working on the platform?
So you think there's going to be other developers that are going to be interested in working on the platform just for no reason, for free?
Why for free?
It's paying them.
Who's paying the Bitcoin
developers?
Who's
working on the platform besides Ripple developers right now, paid by Ripple Labs?
Like, who's
Ripple
going to pay?
Developers are paid by Ripple Labs. Why would Ripple Labs pay developers?
What I'm saying is, if Ripple Labs goes away, it's gone. Who's going to pay the developers?
Other people. Why? I don't see what the problem
is. Who are these other people? So you want me to invest in XRP, telling me that other people are going to be working on it, and you have no idea who they are?
Who's working on Bitcoin?
Developers that have actual, invested interest in Bitcoin, but no one controls Bitcoin. Anybody could come and go.
Nobody controls the XRP ledger.
You're not getting what I'm saying.
No, I don't.
If the Ripple company goes away, if they're gone, right now the Ripple company, the business, is the one that's working on the ledger, right?
They employ a large number of people, but I mean, I do work on the XRP ledger.
That's fine. It's one entity employing a large amount of people, yes?
Sorry, say that again?
One entity that's employing a large amount of people, right?
That's correct.
So if you get rid of that one entity that's employing a large amount of people, does it matter how many people they're employing?
I don't believe so, no. I mean, in the same way that who's employing all the Lightning Network developers, I mean, that's predominantly Blockstream,
no one. They're working on it basically for free. Developers, if you arrest Peter Todd or Greg Maxwell, there are still, thousands of other developers that are working on Bitcoin.
Oh, if Peter Todd got arrested, that'd be a great day. But I don't think that, makes any difference. I think these people are still being paid for the work they're doing. I think it makes a huge difference. Indirectly or directly. Why is it any different with XRP? Why do you think that a developer would work on one platform?
Because it's one entity that's paying developers.
What's the difference?
No one's paying in Bitcoin. There's like 3 developers that are being paid voluntarily by their companies to work on the Bitcoin protocol. But everyone else, it's voluntary work.
Right. So you're trying to say that people will more happily work for free than be paid. Why do you think that works better?
I'm saying the person that, like the issuer that's going to be paying, is not going to be there. It's going to be arrested. And if Ripple, the company, goes away, XRP is now worthless.
Why is it worthless?
We're like talking past each other. Like maybe Shinobi could break it down easier than I can.
You seem to be thinking that Ripple controls the
Ripple
XRP
Labs
ledger.
Is the one paying the majority. Are you going to let me talk?
Go ahead.
Ripple Labs is paying the vast majority of developers. They're the ones working on they're setting out the roadmap. As well, they're the ones giving out the default validator list right now. That is the core of here are who you trust to validate the ledger to decide whether what you're getting is valid or not. So not only do most of the developers stop getting paid if Ripple Labs goes under, not only does the source of the entire roadmap disappear and the source of consensus on changes disappear, but also the default list that everybody starts with as far as what is considered network advancing disappears. The entire foundation of what is allowing that network right now to move forward, all of it goes poof on every level from development to actual network consensus.
I think you misunderstand how network consensus works then. Because yes, they as you
no,
stated,
I don't. It's an avalanche protocol with a relative overlapping list, but the labs, Ripple Labs, is what sets out the fucking software with the initial validator list.
Yes, they have a default list.
Default
you don't
list
have to use
that
the
people
default
listen
list.
to, that comes from Ripple. Without that default list, where does that initial decision of what's valid come from? Does everybody just randomly fucking pick people?
No,
like, is there no starting basis?
No, you would list at the current list of validators on the network and pick the top most reliable ones.
What list? There is no current list of validators. There's just random things to select from.
No,
there's no
look
this
at the
guy
network.
Starts off as like
the validators are all broadcasting on the network. Look on the network.
How many validators are on that network?
There's no basis by which to start from beyond I randomly pick shit. You don't see the issue with randomly picking shit?
I do see the issue with randomly picking shit. That's why you wouldn't randomly pick shit. That's why you would look at the list of validators on the network, look at their metrics, and pick a bunch of good ones. Right? You want to collect a mumble. You don't just randomly pick a server, do you? You look and see what the ping times are. You look and see what the reliability is, etc. If you were to pick a server.
What metric? Okay, so what's your
metric of consensus?
Is that there's going to be people who are in charge. There's going to be people who are in charge. There's
Who's going to be
in
some
charge? Metric where you select one person over another person. That's going to devolve into a group of federators, not just a random.
Why would somebody be in charge?
Overlapping list.
Why do you think somebody would be in charge?
Are you not listening to me at all? If there is some metric by which you judge who is a superior validator to put on your list, that is going to devolve into a group of federators and not a random open list. Nobody's going to pick Jackass Shinobi Monkey because I'm not on this fucking list of metrics that makes me a good validator.
Why are you not? Because you run a shit node?
I'm never going to be somebody. What do you mean shit node? What's a shit node?
If you run a shit node, then you'll have shit metrics, right? If you run a node that is reliable, then you'll have better metrics. And so if you have better metrics, then people might choose to use you as a validator.
What is shit node?
Somebody just muted him or something.
All you're doing is being insulting and snipey now. Qualify what is...
Right, okay,
No, you're not going to qualify what's a shit node?
No, I just tried to, right? I said to you that there are metrics, right? Just in the same way that if you're trying to connect to something like a chat server, a VoIP server, this kind of thing, Mumble, whatever, then you get presented a set of servers and there'll be things like, say, for instance, the ping time to that server. So do you pick one with a shitty ping time or do you pick one with a good ping time? You pick one with a good ping time.
So
now there's the same thing with the XRP ledger.
Giant, expensive
that when you look at the XRP ledger, there will be metrics on the consensus agreement for that node. So
you're saying, okay, I get what you're saying. So you're saying, like, if you're Apple, it's likely you're going to have, one of the better nodes out there, correct?
You just tried to imply that there's going to be metrics on the consensus itself, yet you're listing things like ping time. What does that have to do with consensus?
I tried to use ping time as an example. It was a thing called an analogy, right? Now,
hold on, guys, hold on. You guys are talking over each other, and I think you have that, like, mute thing when he talks. So we need to fix that. Talk over each other or else we can't hear anything.
Okay, let me try and explain, because it was an analogy that seemed to somehow get lost. I was trying to make an analogy because he was asking about metrics and seemed to have a problem understanding.
No, it was a very specific thing that you laid out as a metric that has absolutely nothing to do with consensus and is exactly proving my point.
Do you want me to explain it, or are you going to shut the fuck up?
You're going to devolve into a bunch of centralized servers, and you're going to wind up with a bunch of centralized federators because all it's going to be is the fucking...
Okay,
whatever, Mr. fucking angry.
Right. So the ping time thing was an analogy. I know that might be difficult for you to understand, right? But I was trying to make an analogy so that you could understand that there are metrics on the network that are not controlled directly by a human, but are to do with characteristics of the server and of the network. Now, in the case of the XRP ledger, it is to do with how in agreement that particular validator is. Right? It's nothing to do with ping times. That was an analogy. Sorry if I confused you by trying to use an analogy. Right? Each node will try and participate in the consensus process if you have it on your unique node list. And if a node is continually in disagreement, then that will show up in the metrics. So if you have one node that is continuously acting maliciously, or its uptime is really shitty, or it keeps disconnecting from the network, then it will not be near the top of the list in terms of the metrics, right? So you will pick a series of nodes, unique nodes, near the top of the list. Is that clear?
Okay, so what you're saying is that you're going to start with an undefined foundation, which you initially said was based on things like ping time, so server specs, so how much money you can pay, which is going to price people out and leave you with a centralized group. And then beyond that, you're saying that the only other metrics are when you fall out of consensus with this group that has an undefined foundation, aside from the technical specs of the server it's running on. No, that doesn't make sense. That's a bunch of fucking nonsense. You're starting from no foundation and then just saying you're going to filter things out from that non-foundation.
No, I think you're having a hard time trying to understand this now.
I kind of, that's what I thought. I was
No.
pretty clear on that. Basically,
Okay.
using if Apple, Microsoft, if the top boys were the ones that are running nodes with the best metrics, you're going to fall under their consensus, right?
Correct.
That's called centralization.
Sorry, you can choose to use their consensus. Right. So the difference between, say, XRP and the Bitcoin network is that with XRP, you choose a set of nodes that you believe will not collaborate together, will not collude together, right? You don't have to trust the individual nodes. You just have to have a reasonable enough choice that they are not going to
except
collude,
you can,
right?
You can
So in Bitcoin, the difference being is that you have no choice. In Bitcoin, you basically end up trusting whoever has the highest hash rate. So whoever has the most money and the most wealth and could put the most stuff into it, they're the ones that are more likely to solve the hash cash thing. They're the ones that are going to be, the king for the 10 minutes.
Hash cash thing? How long have you been in the space, man?
No, you do not have to just trust things. That's why you run a node. A miner can only build a block within the consensus rules you run. You don't have to trust that. You validate it objectively.
A new leader is chosen every 10 minutes with each block.
There is no objective metric by which to validate.
No, exactly. There is no objective metric.
So there's a person building a block, and the block is either valid or invalid. Like right now what you're trying to do is you're trying to misrepresent how the Bitcoin network functions to attempt to draw some ridiculous analogy and then argue Ripple is superior because you can choose your own leader. There's no leader in Bitcoin.
You don't choose your own leader.
The block appears. The block is either valid or not. There is no leader. There's just a block, and it's either objectively valid or objectively invalid.
What do you think the point of proof of work is then?
Coordination of extending the ledger, not a leader.
It makes it really expensive to reverse a transaction.
Not really, but the point of proof of work...
it really does. Whereas, what happened? Was it block 30,000? Before block 30,000 with all those blocks got deleted. How did that happen?
They didn't get deleted. What happened was that was before basically the ledger was released publicly, and during testing there was a bug and some of the headers got corrupted. So there was about 288 transactions. This was like in beta time before they launched, in which there was a bug.
Beta time? When was it? There's no way it was a beta time.
Well, it's like 5 years. This is like 5 years ago.
They did not delete any blocks back then.
This is like 5 years ago. I mean, in the same way that Bitcoin, in 2010, there was a value overflow bug and 182 billion Bitcoin miraculously got created. Similar kind of thing to that, but this was during the testing time, not during production.
No, so it's not
we didn't have to. We didn't have to fork.
Any way whatsoever similar to that. No, it is not at all similar.
It's a different kind of a thing, but it's a bug.
The blocks containing that bug was reorged with another chain become the longest chain that had soft forked, fixed that bug and reorged that bug out of existence.
Exactly.
The
you
Ripple
needed
network
human
straight up does
exactly.
not
you needed
have
human intervention
the first
to fix
30,000
it and to reorg
headers
the
to
network.
guarantee its content. No. Again, what you're doing now, you've just flipped from your initial attempt at arguing something, and now you're going somewhere else. Human intervention is that doesn't matter. The ledger.
How do you think
consistent.
It fixed itself then?
Unbroken cryptographically in its link, and it was accomplished through a reorganization. Ripple straight up lost the first 30 whatever thousand headers. You like have no cryptographic guarantee of the fucking integrity of that chunk of the ledger. Bitcoin does.
Right. Do you know what the Genesis block number is on XRP Ledger? I'll give you a hint. It's after that scenario happened, right? So the XRP Ledger was started.
How does that work? How does that work in a decentralized network? How do you just pick when the Genesis block starts?
Because they created it. Who do you think created the Genesis block for Bitcoin?
The Genesis block of Bitcoin has been the same. Like, it hasn't been deleted. We just didn't start up a new Genesis block.
Right.
At a Genesis block, they must have deleted it, and then they started a new Genesis block. That's what I'm getting at.
The Genesis block for Bitcoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto, right?
I say that again?
The Genesis block for Bitcoin was created by its creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, right?
Sure, I mean,
we think.
Maybe.
We don't
so the
know.
Genesis ledger for the XRP ledger was created by the creators of the XRP ledger. So
there was a live network for the first 30,000 blocks, right? There was an actual network that was happening. There were transactions that were going down, right?
There were some test transactions that hadn't gone public yet.
Oh, there wasn't test transactions, man. This happened way after the fucking launch of Ripple. I remember this.
No, it didn't.
So you're saying from 2012 to 2013, XRP was never live. You couldn't buy an XRP fucking token.
The scenario you were talking about happened before the public launch. There were 288 transactions before that happened, right? That's like testing.
288 transactions. No, that would be so trivial to fucking brute force and reconstruct the headers. Yet they've been.
Sorry, the system seems to have muted you or something. I find it hard to hear you.
Shut up, go on your computer. You look at your phone or something right now? Alright, well, let's fucking go on. Let's move on. You don't see a problem of the company of Ripple Labs owning 2/3 of all the coins in circulation?
No.
Okay, well, that's another fundamental difference that we have. Normally, if I tell somebody, if you buy this coin, the person that created this coin has 2/3 of everything that's in circulation, I think you're going to have a hard time convincing them to buy that token.
You may well do. I think people think of it differently. I don't see a problem with it. I mean, I actually think it's a good thing that they hold it because they can use it. I mean, they were gifted it to start with, and they were gifted it to use to grow the network, and that's what they're doing.
They created money out of thin air.
No,
they control 2/3 of. You don't see a problem with that.
Made a shell company and then air quote gifted it to them.
The Ripple Corporation did not create it. They were the Ripple Labs. They were gifted it by the creators.
Yes, all the people involved in it did, and then they air quote gifted it themselves. Like this is bullshit semantics.
This is the storyline of Ripple. I don't even know this.
Made that ledger. And
you can ignore the semantics then, whichever. I mean, I don't see it an issue because they basically have the remit to use that.
No, the semantics are important. They're what.
No, but you're breaking up, dude. Go on a good connection.
They've got this XRP and they're using it at the moment to incentivize partners to build things. They've started this new fund spring.
What happens if they go to jail?
If who go to jail?
They.
Who's they?
No, you keep saying they. They did this, they did that. What if they go to jail?
Okay, Ripple, the corporation, are using it. You're going to
what
send
if Ripple,
Ripple
the corporation, is not existent next year? That money that they're spending on to, for this marketing purposes, what happens to it?
Well, it may go with them then if they disappear completely. Well, that's great. Now you've solved your problem. Now you don't have one company owning a large amount of XRP.
But if that company isn't working on Ripple anymore, if the whole basis is around this company trying to get all these banks on board, and no one's doing that anymore, why hold XRP?
Because there's other use cases as well. So Ripple's use case that they're going after at the moment is international bank transfer, but there's other things as well. So you might have seen recently Coil, the company started by former Bitcoin guy and the CTO of Ripple, Stefan Thomas. You'll see that he started his company Coil, and they're looking at micropayments. Because XRP is very good for micropayments.
Why do you need micropayments when you could do micropayments with Lightning channels? That's the whole point of Lightning Network.
Because it doesn't exist and doesn't work yet.
Lightning doesn't exist today.
Yes, it does exist. There's 3 different implementations working right now in more than half a dozen fucking wallets. Like, stop spewing nonsense.
So the issue here, the centralization part of what I'm talking about of the coins being frozen is me basically saying that if Ripple Labs goes away, your coins that you're holding are now worth 0.
No. Why?
Yes.
Why are they suddenly worth 0?
If you have no development team working on that coin,
you do
that
realize
coin will go to 0.
XRP is owned by Ripple.
No, it's not.
XRP Labs owns those Ripple. You do realize anything that happens to that company, they're considered company assets, right? You do realize that.
XRP
if
Labs
a company
owns
were to go
Ripple.
bankrupt and have to liquidate assets, those
I presume you mean Ripple Labs own the XRP.
50% of the Ripple supply. 50% of the Ripple supply is subject to being liquidated in the bankruptcy.
So I'm still not sure. I still don't understand what your problem is.
How many coins are in circulation right now?
You don't see the problem with half the coins in the entire
more than half. It's 2/3
token supply of Ripple being liquidated. If Ripple Labs were to go bankrupt, you don't see the problem that those are assets of a company which has a litany of legal requirements and procedures of shit to go through if that company were to fail for any number of reasons.
How are they going to be liquidated?
The government. What do you mean?
Well, what are the government going to do?
If a company goes, they liquidate company assets. That's how that works.
They're in escrow, so how are they going to do it?
Dude, if you think anybody at Ripple Labs is going to go no when the government, through a bankruptcy proceeding, says these are going to be liquidated, you're deluded.
Okay, let me explain how blockchains work, because you might not understand this.
Oh, they'll just print another fucking 2/3 of the coin.
Explain how reality works. Let me explain how reality
you can actually
works.
break
A
elliptic
government
cryptography.
agent will go
You're not
knock
going to get in
knock,
there.
and he will go.
So I don't know
you
how
will
you
do
think
this,
that you can
or
just
we
suddenly
will put you
break,
in jail. Here is how reality works.
Elliptic curve.
Hammertoe, you are living in a fantasy land.
Sorry,
they will
man,
go
I can't
knock,
hear you
knock,
now.
knock.
Either get on a
You are
decent
going to
connection
fucking
or do
transfer
something,
this.
because you're nearly impossible to hear.
Yeah, Shinobi, you are pretty hard to hear right now. What if they just print more money? Yeah, Shinobi, I think what he's saying is that since
money.
they are in
you're
escrow,
funny.
it's cryptographically proven where they can't actually take it. How long does it stay in escrow? When is the escrow done?
They're
Escrow forever?
5-year rolling contracts they've got. So yeah, after 5 years.
Oh, in 5 years
they
liquidated. What's the problem?
Well,
dude, you are living in a fantasy land and are completely delusional. If the U.S. government goes knock knock, you're going to move these, and we're going to sell them in the bankruptcy proceedings. They're going to do it. You are delusional. If you think that the U.S. government is going to go knock knock and the people running that escrow, the people at Ripple Labs, are not going to cave in an instant, you are living in a fantasy.
It's under cryptographic escrow. Which bit do you not understand? They are time locked in cryptographic escrow.
Does that mean time lock, or does that just mean another person has to sign?
They're in time lock. You cannot release them
They'll get dumped after the time lock. Guaranteed.
That's what I said. years.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's not going to stop them from liquidating just because they're frozen for 5 years.
Yeah, so they could get to them after 5 years. That's a long time from now.
But if you know today that it's in the hands of the government and they're basically they are going to be liquidated in 5 years. Yeah, I mean that's still, as an investor today, why would I buy coins today when I know 2/3 of it is going to be liquidated?
Yeah, that's a fair point. Don't invest.
Yeah, that's the whole point of centralization I'm talking about.
It's not centralized.
You can't do that in Bitcoin. There's no one single point of failure, where with Ripple, with XRP, there is. It's Ripple Labs.
So somebody turns up at Bittrex, say, and seizes their Bitcoin stash or what they haven't sold yet,
so
right?
what?
Or Poloniex or whatever.
They take it. That's not 2/3 of all the fucking coins in circulation.
No, fair point.
Like 0.5% of all coins in circulation.
Fair point. That's still probably enough to do damage if you wanted to go and flood the network.
I mean, it'll damage what? It's good. The price is going to drop by 20%.
Okay, so let's put it this way then. Let's fast forward another 5 years from now, right? You know, Ripple are going to be selling the XRP. They're going to be using it, right? Their amount of XRP that they're holding is going to be diminishing over time, right? So what will be, say we fast forward 5 years and Ripple own 10% of the XRP, and all the Bitcoin, I can't remember when is it, 2020, 2040, I think it is, when's Bitcoin meant to sort of finish the mining. You know, what happens when we get to that point? Everything's been mined on Bitcoin. All of XRP has been distributed.
Right, so this is a fair criticism. What happens, you're saying, is what's going to happen to Bitcoin when the subsidy goes away, right? That's what you're saying?
Well, so miners are no longer being paid because everything's been distributed, and
no, miners are supposed to be getting paid by fees. That's how
so we're then in a situation where all the currency on both networks has been distributed.
Okay, stop right now, because you are once again disingenuously misrepresenting shit. They don't just not get paid; they get paid in fees.
I know they get paid in fees, but there's no mining.
You say they're not getting paid anymore.
I'm saying that they're
there's a reward. There's no subsidy.
Don't worry about the fees.
Subsidies gone. The reward are the fees. You're thinking of the 21 million coins of the subsidy that they're being paid right now. Right now, they're getting paid a subsidy plus fees. Eventually, it's just going to be fees. There will be no subsidy.
I know that. I'm not on about fees. I'm not on about subsidy. I'm talking about distribution. You fast forward to that point. All the Bitcoin's
so when you do a transaction in Bitcoin, you have to pay
sold.
a fee. That fee goes to the miners. When they go find the block, they're getting paid in mining fees.
You still seem to be stuck on fees.
You're saying when the miners are done, when all the subsidy is gone, how are miners going to get paid, right? That's what you're saying?
No, what I said is, what is it going to look like when everything's been distributed on both networks, right? So on the Ripple network,
markets will kick in and they will be further distributed. People will buy things. People will sell things for property. That money will flow through the market in the process of trading.
Cool. Great. That'll be a nice world then.
At what time was a penny, and now it's $7,500. I think everybody that held it at a penny is holding it today?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Said Bitcoin, when it started, was at a penny, and now it's $7,500. You think everyone that was holding Bitcoin at a penny are still holding Bitcoin today? You think they hold all the coins?
No, of course not. They've sold them. A lot of people have. Some will still hold them.
Bitcoins have been redistributing basically since day one.
Right. Okay, so if you come into the market now as an investor, right? So you come in as an investor and you're looking to either buy, say, Bitcoin or XRP. From your point of view, right, XRP, there's a bunch of it there and you can buy it, and there's a bunch of Bitcoin and you can buy it, right? You're not going to mine it. You're going to buy it off someone. So from your point of view, Bitcoin's already, whatever it is, 70% pre-mined now, right? From your point of view, because a load of it's already been, mined and it's just ready for sale. Similar kind of thing with XRP. There's an amount there that you can buy. So what's the, if you're coming in as
when you're mining, you're actually
what
paying
difference
for
does that
electricity.
make?
When you're mining, when a miner is mining, he's actually taking real-world value and he's putting it into the blockchain, into Bitcoin's blockchain. He has to spend money on that electricity.
Yeah.
With Ripple, they just created tokens out of nowhere. They just created these fucking things.
Yeah, Satoshi created them out of nowhere. He then created a distribution system.
No.
That then
Satoshi had to
requires
actually take electricity
to
and mine.
So the creation, they were created out of nowhere. The same with XRP. All
No. You're still not understanding. When Satoshi created Bitcoin, he had to mine in order to get those Bitcoins. It's not like Bitcoin just appeared in his fucking hard drive.
Yeah, I know. He distributed it effectively to himself, and it was very cheap at the time, obviously.
He was spending money on electricity on something that had $0. That's zero value. How can you not grasp that?
Yeah, and the same with XRP. They created a bunch of stuff that had zero value.
No, XRP created tokens out of thin air that costed them nothing to do.
No, they just minted it out of...
Exactly, and it cost them nothing, and it had no value. The same with Bitcoin when it created, right? When Bitcoin first created,
again,
Bitcoin
you're not
no
understanding.
Value.
When you mine Bitcoins, you have to spend money on electricity to get these Bitcoins.
Right. How much do you think Satoshi paid in electricity for the first Bitcoins he mined? Probably about as much as I did.
I have no idea.
Was pretty close to.
I don't even know how many coins he's mined.
Oh, there you go. So there's your problem, right? So you don't know how many he's holding.
No one knew it was going to work. No one knew anything was going to work back then.
But the value of those coins at the time was zero. I don't care how much you spent. You still had to take energy, put it into your computer, and start mining these things. These things just come up out of thin air.
Is it was like the miracle that kept going. People would leave and be like, oh, I'll just take my equipment off and stop mining. And, they come back 2 months later and they're like, holy shit,
what do you think is the point of Bitcoin? Why is it in existence today?
Why do I think Bitcoin was created? In response to the 2008 financial crash.
Okay, now, why was there a 2008 financial crash?
Due to basically over-lending, predominantly started around originally the mortgage, subprime mortgage market in the US, but in general kind of greed on Wall Street and the likes.
Yeah, but you could also say in Argentina there was hyperinflation there, Venezuela hyperinflation there. Isn't it fair to say that because the way money works today, there needs to be a change?
Oh, I totally agree.
It was a response
you don't
to
see any value
money.
What Bitcoin provide us?
No, I think value. I think Bitcoin's got value. Definitely, I've never said it hasn't. I think Bitcoin has got value.
My question is now: if you think that there needs to be a change in the money system,
projects, and,
what makes you think Ripple is that change?
If
they could just create money out of thin air, just exactly
if you want to use it for a method of payment, I think XRP works much better.
No, it doesn't. It works much better because it's a centralized coin. That's fine, but at the same time, it's not censorship resistant. You have Ripple Labs
with regards
that owns 2/3 of the coin that could be arrested at any time.
You can forget about that for the moment, and we can talk about the network because you seem to be conflating the two, which is a bit of a problem because that's going to confuse you.
So the network, I don't have a problem.
Here's the difference between the networks. Bitcoin is guaranteed to converge on a single consensus. Ripple is not. The only way Ripple arrives at the same consensus is if everybody just picks groups that don't conflict with each other with no objective basis for consensus building.
What do you mean no objective basis?
Exactly what we went over earlier. There will just be the biggest centralized servers running things that people are putting on their list, and if you fall out of consensus with those objective servers, it's just they're always right. They are in control of what is valid consensus just by virtue of being the biggest, because there is no objective basis for anything. You just pick people and put them on your validator list.
What you keep saying the biggest, right? Like you're trying to compare it to
exactly like you said. People who have the biggest uptime, the most reliable hardware, are going to be the ones people are putting on their validator lists, and then that's just it. Because once you fall out of consensus with that, you're not getting put on a list anymore.
Okay, so you said Microsoft and Apple, right? Thought experiment here. So you have validators Microsoft, Apple, whatever, Wikipedia, the Linux Foundation, right? Now, you might not trust necessarily all of those parties or even any of those parties, but you can probably trust that they're not going to collude together. Right, you're not going to get Microsoft, the Linux Foundation, Wikipedia, and Apple all colluding together because they've got different interests, right? So you can probably, take a very good bet that they are not going to collude.
But that's not the point. I don't care about them colluding. I'm more worried about the government.
What do you think?
Why can you make that bet they're not going to collude? Well, one here. Let's deal with this collusion thing. What's the reward schedule like in Ripple? Do people producing blocks get rewarded?
Seriously, you're going to ask that now? So you've got this far and you haven't even looked at that.
Be strict and clear. Answer the question.
They don't.
That's exactly why they will collude, because there is no fucking financial incentive to not collude. And then to go back to Mr. Hoddle's point, if the government decides to take an interest in shit and grabs the fucking nodes that are on everybody's validator list, now what? On what basis are people going to pick their validators? Can you guarantee that they will arrive at consensus? Can you guarantee that a large group will come out ahead? Exactly. The entire network falls apart.
No, what happens is if they continually can't arrive at consensus, then the ledger will halt, right? Unlike Bitcoin, the ledger will not continue if it's an unsafe state. So the ledger will halt. Then people who run nodes will then have to pick validators.
Stop right now with this comparison to Bitcoin. There is never an unsafe state. There is something that you are concerned with that is either buried beneath enough proof of work to be considered safe or not. There is no unsafe network state. The network is always progressing, and it will always progress.
That is a safe state. If there's a 51% attack going on and there's double spends going on, that's safe, you're saying?
Yes, because you can wait longer. You can wait longer, and everything below enough proof of work is not getting fucking overwritten. Also, with things like lightning channels and side chains, people can continue transacting regardless of whether a fucking attack is going on or not. If I've had a fucking lightning channel...
Yeah, that only works because Lightning Channel's broken and that it just completely bypasses any blockchain stuff. I mean, you could just use a centralized database if you can use Lightning Channel. You can just write down a postcard.
That is the most delusional shit I've ever heard in my life. No, Lightning is not just a centralized database. So if I've had a channel open for the last 3 months,
and then when do I close that channel?
Dude, I'm going to mute you if you just keep talking. I'm going to do it.
Then that channel is kept open and nothing happens, right?
Wow, Craig Wright made Shinobi
Lightning is not a centralized database. It is a distributed network of channels. If my channel's been open for the last 3 months, you have to reorg the chain for the last 3 months for me to not be able to transact with a 51% attack going on. It doesn't
Bitcoin
matter.
transaction, man. When you open up a Lightning channel, that's a Bitcoin transaction.
Yeah, I know that. And then you have to close the channel for that transaction to be recorded on the main chain, right?
Yeah, but you could do 1 million transactions while it's open and then close it all in one.
I know, yeah, that's fine. But the point being is you're going to have to keep that channel open for what, a year, 2 years, something like that, if you're going to actually use it reliably. Because for each channel open, you're going to have to reserve effectively some of your currency, and you are going to need to open a channel to anybody you want to transact with. So we talked about the micropayments thing, right? So say we want to have a situation where, you know, say we replace advertising with micropayments on news websites, all right, as a hypothetical situation. And we want to have a situation where my web browser can pay a news website transparently under Lightning in order to pay for the service, right? So we have, you know, however many news websites in the world. Imagine this is quite a popular thing. And for every news website, I'm going to need to open a Lightning channel. So if somebody sends me a link to a new news website, I want to go use that, and I can't because I've got to wait for my transaction to go through the main channel to open the channel, correct?
And spouting shit out of your ass.
Okay,
no,
correct me.
You do not have to fucking open a channel with every individual person you're
Why not?
paying. That's the entire design of the network.
What,
you have no clue what the fuck you're talking about.
So it's centralized then? You're saying that you have to open it, what, with a central hub?
Dude, you're talking out of your ass.
Oh, man.
No, look.
Not understand how scale-free networks work?
So which is
the internet centralized? Is the internet centralized? Because the way your packets are being delivered to me through this server right now is the exact same way that a Lightning payment would be. Is the internet centralized?
No, but there's central points on the internet.
Okay.
Things go around,
well, hey, guess what? You know. Then stop claiming something is centralized. You were talking out of your ass.
But I don't need a wallet open on my, you know, ISP in order for me to send packets through, right? Whereas
you need a connection.
I've got to have a channel pre-funded, right? So who do I pre-fund my channel to? Like one central point.
Anybody you want.
Like a bank. So I pre-fund my channel to a bank.
It's anybody you want, and not a bank. You are injecting bullshit straw men and trying to just completely twist the understanding of something you don't even understand yourself. It's actually less or present with central points of failure than the internet, because you have to go through your fucking ISP with the internet. I can open a channel on Lightning with whoever the fuck I want.
Okay, so I have to open a whole load of channels, right? Is what you're saying. So I have to lock up a bunch of my Bitcoin to open a whole load of channels to different places because otherwise it's centralized. Is that what you're saying?
Well, again, like, you are doing nothing but interjecting nonsense straw men into this conversation.
No, I'm trying to ask you how it would work, right? You're saying it's not centralized. So you're saying, like, what? I have to open a bunch of channels to a load of different places for it not to be centralized, right?
Oh, just a few. And if you choose correctly...
Up to the places where you shop at.
If I choose correctly. Okay. And if the places I shop at. Okay. So this is the thing. Like I said, news channels. Now somebody sends me a new link and I want to use it. Now I don't have a channel open to them. So I've got to now open a new one, or I've got to rely on, hopefully, that I have a channel open to somebody who has a channel open to somebody who has a channel open to somebody that's there.
Not rely on, hopefully. Right? At large scale, there will be, because people who are not using this for payments will be opening these channels to collect fees, and they will be specifically targeting their connection graph on the network for maximal connectivity to route for other people, because it's an economic incentive.
Great. So that promotes centralization. That's my point, you see. That's what
that is the exact opposite. That promotes redundant distribution so that everybody can get fees moving through them. Like, look, dude, you're talking out of your ass.
With Bitcoin as a whole, that it's ended up being centralized amongst a few large miners. No. And you're saying that the exact same thing's going to, the exact same model, and it's going to happen again.
You're putting words in my mouth and just spewing bullshit. Mining pools do not equal miners. And this is something that altcoiners consistently misrepresent. Those mining pools don't matter, because the second a mining pool I'm hooked up to does something malicious, I move to another one. Any rational miner hooked up to that pool moves to another one because they want to make money. Like, can you not have a single conversation about Bitcoin without misrepresenting half of its design?
Oh, I'm trying to learn here. I mean, most of this came about because of misrepresentation of XRP and trying to correct Mr. Hoddle here, when he repeatedly kept, misrepresenting things.
What have I misrepresented? What have I said that was technically inaccurate regarding XRP?
About freezing? About that Ripple can freeze XRP?
Where did I say that? Nowhere did I make such a statement.
Let me just scroll back. It's been a pretty busy day on Twitter here. The individual account freeze. Here we go. See if I can paste it.
Through trust lines, which is very much something you can do.
I think the biggest issue with XRP is, it's probably better than SWIFT. SWIFT is from the 1980s. Anything is better than SWIFT for interbank transfers. But we all got into Bitcoin because of the supply, the inflation schedule, the decentralization, the sound money properties of it. And with Ripple, like the supply overhang, the issuance of it, that's all like up in the air.
I can't work out how to paste into this stupid thing. Where do I, in the chat window, there doesn't seem to be an actual input box.
The dependability of Ripple. It just doesn't have that quality of it's virtual, right? So it has to have a quality.
Sorry, I had to take my headphones off. But it was me that said that XRP can be frozen, and I was thinking that's why I told you to come on here. Bigger issues than Ripple Labs being able to freeze XRP. That's why I wanted to get on here.
That's a pretty big statement, though. I mean, you said that Ripple Labs could freeze XRP. That's, I mean, you can say that's not a big issue, but I would say that shows a pretty fucking massive misunderstanding of things, right? And then you then decided to then fight that, after being corrected.
What I said to you was that I didn't.
Everybody can see the link of your bullshit
about XRP until today. I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. Ripple is nothing new. When I heard about the properties of Ripple, I just didn't find it interesting. I just thought it was irrelevant.
Well, that's your prerogative. That's fine.
Like, we're 7 years later, and all of a sudden, some people are now interested in Ripple.
If ISIS uses Ripple and the consensus is built around a bunch of banks, you don't think that's going to get frozen?
How is it going to get frozen?
Because the consensus was built around a consortium of banks.
Okay, maybe you don't understand how consensus works. Each node chooses a number of validators to form the consensus. So you could just choose a different set of validators. If you think, I mean, it's not like Bitcoin where you could censor a transaction, right? A miner can't, in Bitcoin, right? A miner chooses which transactions to include in a block, and if the fee's not high enough, it doesn't include them, or if the government tells it not to include fees on, UTXOs on this list, they could do that, right? Whereas in XRP, you can't do that.
That has no guarantee of universal consensus across the entire network.
No, you're correct. It doesn't.
Well, again, that is the fundamental flaw.
What do you think the consensus
and proof of work
does?
systems have a universal guarantee of universal consensus.
What do you think is the point of consensus?
It is to have every single participant of a single system in consensus on a single global state.
Right.
Proof of work systems have a guarantee of every participant arriving in that single consensus.
So what do you think in the case of XRP, what is the reasoning we have consensus then? What do you think, what you tell me what
exact
you think the point
same thing,
is.
Except it does a shittier job at it because it does not have a guarantee of that.
So what state do you think we're actually trying to get consensus on here?
State of balances.
No. Try again.
Are you fucking kidding me? The point of Ripple, the fucking monetary cryptocurrency network, is not to arrive at consensus on the fucking balances of the network. Are you fucking kidding me?
No, the consensus algorithm doesn't have anything to do with balances. That's the blockchain. The consensus algorithm doesn't.
Jesus fucking
do you
Christ,
think proof of work has anything to do with balances on Bitcoin?
You are talking out of your ass.
Do you think proof of work has anything to do with balances on Bitcoin?
Yes, it does. The entire.
Why?
To create consensus, the balance.
No, that's the blockchain. The blockchain has the blocks in the blockchain have the record of the balances.
Right now, because you are frankly looking like a fucking fool. That consensus mechanism has no reason to exist except to create consensus on the state of the blockchain. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
No, I'm not kidding you. You just don't understand how it works, right? The point of consensus, the point of consensus on XRP is to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to come to a consensus on the order of transactions. So when a number of transactions arrive in a short time frame,
yes, which is to arrive at consensus on the balances of everything on the network.
No, it's not. I just said that to you. No, it's not.
You're fucking kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you. Okay, just look, put your dummy in and just hold on a second, right? Okay. The point is
momentum counting without the momentum?
No, the point is to come to an agreement on the set of transactions that will be included in the next ledger. It's got nothing to do with the balances.
The reason you are doing that is to have global consensus on the balance of everything. If you do not see that and recognize that, then the fact you have stayed for any amount of time in this space thinking you understand anything is hilarious.
No, you see, you don't understand it.
You're wrong. Hammertoe.
You don't understand how Bitcoin works.
Hammertoe. You're just actually plain wrong, right? Because the thing that you're missing is exactly what I just said, and that's momentum accounting. That is entirely the premise, which is implied, which maybe that went right over your head, which Ripple uses to guarantee its accounting integrity. Jesus Christ, dude.
No. Okay, let's start from the beginning here, right? Both Bitcoin and the XRP ledger are a series of blocks with transactions in, correct? Right? There's a number of blocks and a number of transactions.
Exist for the sole purpose of coming to global consensus of the global balances.
Right, and that's why that is replicated amongst a whole
so then
you
nodes. Just admitted everything you've said prior to that about Ripple
consensus
not being for balances is nonsense.
Okay, the consensus. Okay, this is the bit you don't understand. Sorry, maybe this is.
I understand very clearly that you're trying to twist semantics.
I'm not.
Consensus
is the algorithm that is used by the validators to order the transactions, right? Sorry, maybe it
for
doesn't come
the
across.
sole explicit purpose of coming to consensus on global balances.
No.
If you don't know the balance system, then what the fuck? Like, how does this all work?
Okay, this is if Butt Monkey, whatever his name is, can be quiet for a second. So what happens is
Fucking Butt Monkey.
The ledger and the Bitcoin blockchain, right? The XRP ledger and the Bitcoin blockchain are a series of blocks or ledgers with transactions in that tell you the state of the balance. Those are replicated amongst a whole load of nodes, and each block is cryptographically signed with the next one, so that you have this chain of history that you can say, well, you can't change that bit of history because then it would be reflected further on, right? That's the kind of the blockchain bit. Then the bit where they differ is how you create the newest block to add to the blockchain and how you agree on solving the double spend problem. That was a revolutionary thing that Bitcoin brought about, was the fact that you could solve the double spend problem without having a central arbiter. That was Bitcoin's revolution, right? Before then, every other electronic money needed some kind, pretty much everyone needed some kind of centralized arbiter to solve the double spend problem. Right? So Bitcoin managed to solve that by coming up with proof of work. And the proof of work, as I said before, you solve the puzzle, you then have an elected leader for 10 minutes. That elected leader effectively decides what transactions then go in that block. And they can choose ones that have a high enough fee if they want, or they can exclude some, or whatever they want, right? In the XRP ledger, to solve the double spend problem is really easy if you can agree on the order in which transactions happened. So if I make two transactions at about the same time and try and spend the same, 100 XRP twice, then if we can agree the order of them happening, and we can agree one comes first and one comes second, then the first one is valid, the second one is invalid, because I've already spent that 100 XRP. So the whole point of the consensus algorithm is to come to consensus on the order in which a number of transactions that are happening at a similar time happened. That's it.
For the purpose of having consensus on the global balance of everything.
No, that's the point of the blockchain bit.
Any blockchain system, any cryptocurrency that doesn't even run on a blockchain has that consensus mechanism to arrive at the global balance of everything. That is the point of the network, is to maintain consensus of all of the balances.
Like I said before you went into that just intricate babble there, you can look it up. It's called momentum accounting, right? That may answer your question. It's implied. It is implied. For the love of God, this is something that is just something that we understand. I have a question. It's inherent to. Oh my God!
I have a question. Like the whole pitch for XRP is that they're going to get banks to use it, right? Like it's going to be a global banking thing.
That's Ripple's pitch for XRP, yeah.
So if all the banks start using it, they are the consensus, right? So they got to go with governmental rules around the world. They're not going to take a thing that you can send drug money across or ISIS can use. So there's going to be censored transactions on this thing.
No, there's not.
So if you go with the uncensored transaction and they decide to censor it, you're forking off. You're creating another protocol.
Oh yeah, if you don't reach an agreement on your rule,
and then
that's what democracy is. That's what happens in Bitcoin, right? In Bitcoin, if you decide you don't agree with it, then you fork the network. That's what a fork is. A fork is a disagreement on the rules. And the same thing would happen with XRP. Is if you didn't agree, then you would get a fork.
Time out. The difference here is that eventually, if there's not enough buyers that if there are not enough buyers for Bcash, they will eventually have to cause inflation, or they will start merge mining. My opinion is they'll start merge mining first. With Ripple, you could just create Ripple again out of thin air.
What do you mean create it again? What, as in start again a brand new network?
Well, if you fork, if you're now going to do a transaction that the rest of the network, the Ripple network is going to be censoring, you're going to fork off. And now you need to convince a lot of other people to fork off with you, or else you're going to be by yourself on that fork.
Yeah, exactly. That's democracy. That's how these things work, right?
No, but Bitcoin isn't a democracy.
Right. So the point being is that the only reason these systems work is because you have agreement between a bunch of people on how you want it to work. right? If a whole
you're
bunch of
either gonna
people
agree
wanted
on
Bitcoin,
censoring
wanted to make it work like
transactions.
Ethereum,
The
then
difference,
that would be Ethereum.
no, but the difference is that those top nodes that you're talking about, if they're going to be Microsoft, Apple, fucking Linux Foundation, whoever else, and if all of a sudden the government gets their hands on those nodes, if you don't follow the rules of those nodes, you are getting kicked off the network. I'm not sure how you cannot understand that.
So you're gonna go with the consensus of censorship. Otherwise, you're gonna have no value.
The point being, though, is that
the point being in Bitcoin is that anybody is able to run a node. The reason that there's no block size increase in Bitcoin is so eventually you could have a node on every fucking phone in the world where it's impossible to censor. That's called censorship resistant.
Yeah, and same with XRP.
No, XRP, you just said that if all of a sudden there's some kind of attack, people are going to follow the best nodes on the network, which are going to be your Microsoft and your Apples. Now, I'm telling you that government will eventually step in. If you go against those nodes, you are on another network, and you now have to convince other people to join you. Bitcoin, that doesn't work like that. Because everyone is able to download a node and validate for themselves, you don't have to rely on Microsoft or Apple validating for you.
And Bitcoin works exactly like that. Bitcoin, if you decide to choose a different set of rules, then you
Evan, did anybody record this conversation?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you then.
Did anyone here record this conversation?
Yeah, I'm recording it.
All right, damn you, Jen. Just upload this as fast as possible and let the people decide on who's making more sense. Because he thinks that if there's Microsoft, Apple, and fucking Linux Foundation running nodes, that's the same thing as any person in this world as a Bitcoin user could run a node. Those are not the same things.
In what way are they not the same things?
The fact that everyone in this world...
to do anything to put proof of work out to the network and you validate it. I have to convince you as a person to add me to some list to participate as a fucking a source generator on Ripple. I don't have to convince you of shit with Bitcoin. I
don't have to convince you of anything on XRP either.
Yes, you do. You have to convince me to add you to my validator list, or you don't matter.
No, you miss something. Look, this is the thing you don't understand about validators, right?
No, I very much do understand. Is that we're talking right now about being a peer on a network, generating the ledger,
they broadcast their
extending the ledger.
Now, anybody can choose whether or not they want to listen to that, and it is up to them.
It doesn't work like that in Bitcoin.
What we're talking about right here, I plug in my ASIC on Bitcoin, I am extending that ledger. Done. That's all I have to do. Ripple, I have to go actively convince people to trust me.
Yes, you have to actively convince people. Exactly.
Bitcoin.
You don't see the fundamental difference and problem with that?
No, yeah, I do. I think the Ripple one is a much better model in the fact that the only people that will get trusted are people that can demonstrate they're trustworthy. And if they do something to destroy that trust, then anybody can choose to move away from them and not listen to them.
What if you can't?
What do you mean, what if you can't?
All right, so...
What if all the exchanges have to run the other version, and in order to sell anything worth money, you do too? Oh, whoopsies.
Sorry, I don't get what you're trying to propose there.
What happens is that if you don't follow the rules and all the exchanges are running a certain type of node and you don't believe in those fucking nodes, you're going to split off and you're going to be by yourself on your own network that's worth nothing.
Right, and that's like what Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Cash. That's what happened, right? They
had to proactively change something.
They have
can arrive at a consensus failure just because of how it works.
There's a fundamental difference here, and it's the fact that you can't see it. Well, maybe you can see it and you're choosing to ignore it on purpose because you're a Ripple shill, which is fine. I get it. I understand. But I don't think it's going to fly with the rest of the world.
I think the problem being is that you still don't understand what the consensus process does, right? Again, I'll repeat it again. All the consensus process does,
I think you do not understand it comes on any level at all.
The order in which a bunch of transactions happen. That's all that happens, right?
Or the purpose of consensus on global balances.
No. I can repeat this as many times as I want.
You're going to put this recording out and you're going to sound like the biggest fool in the world. Go put this recording out.
Hammertoe, when you go to an ATM machine, when you turn on that ATM machine, what is that? When you put in your debit card, what is that purpose of that ATM machine?
The purpose of the ATM machine is for me to withdraw money from my bank account.
Yes, but how does that ATM machine know how much money you have in your bank account?
Because it connects to a central database.
That comes to what?
What do you mean comes to what? There's a central database in the bank.
That database is the consensus. That database without that database, there's no way to fucking know how much money each account has.
Correct.
What Satoshi figured out is how to fucking turn on for everyone to turn on their computers to make sure everyone has the amount of bitcoins on their wallets that they're supposed to have.
No, he didn't.
That's the whole point of this.
No, he didn't. That wasn't the Bitcoin.
What the fuck is the double spending problem? If I said
problem that Satoshi solved.
Right. What is the double spending problem?
The problem that Satoshi solved was the problem of double spend.
Hammer, you are the most coolest person I have ever met in this space to say that finding global consensus of everybody's balance is not the point of all this shit.
What is
that
is
delusional.
Bitcoin? No.
Hammertoe,
we had replicated systems way before.
Okay,
the thing that Bitcoin did.
What is the double spend problem? What is that? Describe what a double spend.
Okay, so I've described it already.
It's the problem with changing those balances so the consensus can maintain itself.
And I then spend it twice. So I've got $20 in my account. Right? In the ATM example you just had, if I had $20 in my account, I'd go to one ATM and I can withdraw $20, right? If I then run across the road and go to another ATM and try and withdraw that $20, I can't withdraw that same $20 because there's a central database that keeps track, and the first transaction
everybody's balances,
right?
Yes. Oh my
God! With Bitcoin, the thing that it solved was
Hammertoe, stop, because you need to be corrected here. It's about the balances. It's not just the withdrawals, it's balances.
That is elected once every 10 minutes. And that temporary leader chooses the order in which things go in the blocks.
No.
Let's go back to the ATM. Hold on, let's go back to the ATM.
The ATM is not checking your withdrawals. It's not, you can't withdraw $20 the same time. It's making sure your balance is not overdrawn.
Exactly.
So that's checking.
It's all about global balances, Hammertoe.
That's the point of Bitcoin, man, is to make sure that you are not saying that you have the wrong balance in your account. It's making sure that if you have $20, you're not going to try to spend $40.
Right, now the thing with Bitcoin, before then we had replicated systems, right? That's nothing new, right? To be able to replicate this data amongst a load of systems is nothing new.
And a decentralized way is new, of course. That's Bitcoin. That's what happened.
No, and then the thing that Bitcoin solved was the double spend problem of spending two simultaneous transactions in different locations, right? If I spend one now and then one a week later, that's easy to solve because you would have replicated the data by then. Right. The thing with Bitcoin is to solve the issue of two simultaneous transactions happening at different parts of the network.
I refuse to believe people are this stupid.
I do too, but I'm still talking to you. Right?
Listen, Hammertoe. If I have $40 in my bank account and I try to send $60 to somebody, what's going to happen?
It will fail.
Yes. So it's making sure that my balance is correct, right?
Yes, but that's nothing to do with proof of work.
Okay, that's fine. In Bitcoin, if I try to send you 3 Bitcoins, but I only have 1 Bitcoin, what will happen?
It will fail.
Why?
Because the node you're connecting to has a replicated state of the blockchain and can see that you do not have that in your account.
Global balances. Oh my God!
Yes, you're right. That's the balance.
Yeah. But that's not the problem that Satoshi solved. The problem that Satoshi solved was the double spend problem.
He did. What he solved was the ability to, in a decentralized way. I'm muting you for a minute. Satoshi solved was the ability to update the state of global balances without conflict and maintaining global consensus on the state of everybody's global balance. That's what he did. And the fact that you're saying that this has nothing to do with any of this, it's delusional.
No, it's not delusional. I think you don't understand the two problems that were solved at the same time, right? So, like I said, the problem is with double spend, right?
Do you want me
We've had replicated systems before that.
Is this a Monty Python skit on blockchain?
Hamilton, if Adam Back came in here and told you that that's what it solved, would you agree with him?
Who?
Adam Beck.
Who's he?
The person that Satoshi, fucking, he had his name in the white paper.
One of the people who invented.
Okay, if you go and read the Bitcoin white paper, right, and the thing that you'll see is that the revolution in the Bitcoin white paper was solving the double spend problem.
Satoshi referenced Adam Beck. If Adam Beck came in here and told you that that's what he solved, would you believe us now? That's all I'm asking you. Satoshi referenced Adam.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, let me see if I can get him on here real quick.
Of how Ripple shillers have nothing but just complete distortions of semantics to offer. It's really hilarious.
No, I think it's not
funny
that.
That he didn't even know who Adam was, man. That was the funny thing.
Yeah, I don't follow everybody in the blockchain world.
What about Nick
the people who've been working on distributed consensus systems for longer than Bitcoin's existed.
Hold on, wait. Do you know who Nick Szabo is?
Nick Szabo? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all right. I don't think Adam seems to be idle right now, but maybe I could get Nick to tweet at you or something.
Sure thing. Yeah. About ask him what was the revolutionary problem that Satoshi solved with Bitcoin, and it was the double spend problem. It was the double spend problem. I guarantee you that.
Double spend, but it was a double spend problem. Which your description of a double spend problem doesn't make any fucking sense.
In what way?
In the fact that the entire purpose of solving the double spend problem was to have global consensus on everybody's balances. That is its explicit only purpose for existing as a solution.
Yeah, we should make a Twitter poll, man. We should do a Twitter poll.
Yes. Now, the thing being, though, is that you could replicated data was around beforehand, right? You could replicate the state. That's nothing new. Right?
Replicated data does not guarantee arriving at consensus. No, I'm not going to shut the fuck up because you're wasting everybody's time with nonsense. Replicating state does not guarantee consensus on everybody who's replicating that state doing the same state changes. That's what fucking proof of work was for. Solving the double spend problem allows everybody to maintain global consensus on the global state, which is everybody's fucking balances.
Could you do a block digest episode with us? It'll be Monty Python style.
On the fucking front page of YouTube, Reddit, and everything.
Yeah, you can dress up as a banker. You'll come on camera with us. It'll be really good.
I don't know. I'm more thinking this is sounding more like was it Ferris Bueller's Day Off when he pretends to be ill? This Adam guy that you're going to bring on. I just got a feeling you're holding the phone away and going to put your hand over the speaker or the microphone and just start talking in a funny voice. Oh, this is Adam here.
Oh man,
Look,
you're definitely
being,
new.
Okay,
you're definitely new, man.
Look, we agree. Look, I agree that this is all to do with replicated state, right? The difference being is that the revolutionary bit was the double spend problem, and that's just to do with the current block, right? That's all that's to do with the current block. Once that block is added to the blockchain and you've got the finality of it and it's replicated, then proof of work's got nothing more to do with that, right? It's on the blockchain, right? There's no you've worked out which transactions were valid at that time, right? That's the same with the XRP ledger. So the only thing that consensus does is work out which of a set of transactions are happening at the same time, which order they are in, so you know which one comes first. Now, Bitcoin does exactly the same in that you just elect a leader, and that leader for 10 minutes gets a chance to choose that. In XRP, it's much more democratic in that you actually try and get consensus amongst a load of servers so that you don't just get one kingmaker that can censor transactions.
Hammerto, are you saying that when a miner finds a block, that's the leader we choose?
No, it's not. It's just a block, and we update it if it's valid.
Is that what he's saying? Is that what you're trying to say?
He's going through this nonsense semantics of strictly talking about distributed consensus in a computer science way so that he can distort things and continue this nonsense that the consensus finding process has nothing to do with global balances. It's fucking hilarious.
Sorry, you're saying that I'm talking about this in a computer science way, and that's a problem.
I'm saying
for you
you're
when we're
strictly talking about it
I mean, I hate
in
to
a
break it to
very
you, but I haven't
narrow
got a master's in
jargon,
computer
which
science,
is
so that might be
hilarious.
why.
Yeah.
Doesn't make them a leader of the fucking network. That means they have proposed a block, which if no chain with a longer fucking or a greater proof of work comes up, then that's the top block. That doesn't fucking make them a leader of the network.
How do you
We're not talking strictly in the terms of consensus through the lens of computer science.
Okay,
we're
so
talking about the purpose
which transactions
of it.
go in that
And
block?
the purpose of it is global balances and maintaining consensus on everybody's global balance.
So
the
who
fact
chooses
that
which
you can
transactions go in that
deny
block?
that is just beyond logic.
Who chooses which transactions go in that block then? You create a new block. Who chooses which transactions go in?
Right now,
I'm not doing this because this fucking semantics.
It's not semantics. We're talking about how these things work.
Has nothing to
If
do
you're
with
going to talk
the
about how these things
purpose
work,
of
then
it.
I'm not going to bother being on the
purpose
call. Right?
Hold on, Hammer Tub. You try to understand that there's incentives of putting transactions in a block. You want the fees. Right now, the subsidy is kind of high, so you don't really care as much about the fees. But eventually, if you don't put transactions in a block, you don't get the fees. Why would you mine for free?
Right. Who chooses which transactions go into a block?
Are you fucking retarded? I just told you. When the miner finds it, he says, I'm willing to give up money.
Right, so that's what I just said, right? That's what I said just now, and you try to laugh at me when I said that. That the miner that creates the block,
I'm laughing at you because it has nothing to do with the purpose of that process. The purpose of the process is to arrive at global consensus of all of the balances.
Exactly, and the way that you do that is by
you just admitted that you have been banging on about bullshit for 10 minutes.
You choose a leader, and that leader has 10 minutes to choose to basically they run the network and they get to choose what transactions go in that block for 10 minutes. Right?
No, okay, no, wrong. No. Now you are objectively wrong in the fucking lens of computer science and consensus algorithms. You do not choose a leader for 10 minutes. You get a block. One miner, okay, leader, has fucking selected that block. And then for 10 minutes, it's a fucking free-for-all where anybody can be. And then the next block pops up. But again, this has nothing to do with the purpose for this process, which is global consensus of everybody's balances.
But it's not a free-for-all because that miner is the one that chooses ultimately which transactions go in that block.
It is a free-for-all.
After he found the block, every miner now is fair game to find the next block.
Every miner finds the next block, yeah, but when that block is open, right, they get to choose effectively which transactions go in that block.
The update happens, that's it.
He finds a block, it gets uploaded, that's it. There's no waiting 10 minutes. You wait for the next block to come in.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I understand there's a, and it's an average, I know that. It could be 2 minutes, it could be an hour, or whatever, right?
How long have you been in the space?
A number of years. I can't remember exactly.
Like what,
3 years maybe?
And you went straight to Ripple? That's...
No, I was involved in Bitcoin first.
No, you weren't. Be honest.
No, I was.
What'd you do with Bitcoin?
Well, sold it. I've got a block eruptor somewhere around here in my office. I've just moved it. You know, one of the little block eruptor cubes? Can't remember who made them now.
A cube, it's a USB stick.
USB stick. Unless he's talking about the Butterfly Lab cube.
I'll have to find it. It might be in the garage now. It's too.
Right, so
it's not worth running
now. So 3 years ago, you got like a little miner. You plugged it in, and then you went to Ripple right after that. Like, how did you get to Ripple? Like, how did you come to Ripple?
I was introduced it by a colleague who, we were mining together, and basically he was the one that realized that this was getting a bit futile and that we were getting basically priced out of the market by the big miners. He wasn't competitive to run it anymore. And XRP looked like it was going to be a better bet. Well, he moved on to Dogecoin for a little while. Dogecoin and then Dogecoin, whatever, and then from Dogecoin, then went to XRP. I went into XRP.
When how much was XRP 3 years ago?
Well, I didn't get it 3 years ago. I bought it like middle of last year. It was 20 something cents, 23 cents, maybe 22 cents. He bought before me. I was too slow. He bought it for like 4 cents.
Oh, got it. And you think, where do you think, like, what's the goal? What do you think Ripple's going to head to? How much do you think Ripple's going to be worth?
Oh, now there's the $1 million question, isn't it? I don't know. I think we could get back up above $5, maybe hit $10 by sort of end of this year, maybe middle of next year.
How many coins are in circulation? How many Ripple coins are in circulation?
Well, depending on how you count, but 30 something billion.
30 billion. And then if it's $10, if it's $10 a coin, what market cap is that? Where does that lead to?
You're asking me to multiply 30 billion by 10?
Yeah, what is that?
300 billion.
Oh, $300 billion. So you think Ripple's going to be a $300 billion market cap in the next when?
Could potentially be, yeah.
How long?
I think probably towards the end of this year, maybe middle of next year.
And why do you think that's going to happen?
I think the interest in it is certainly growing. There seems to be a lot more people looking to use it. There's a lot of remittance companies, money transfer companies that are starting to use it. You've got things like the SBI Virtual Currencies Exchange just starting now. So when's that go live? Middle of next month, I think that goes live for sort of general production. They've only got like 20,000 people now, but they're going to go full with that middle of next month. And that's XRP based, so I think that's going to drive a lot.
But you're strictly in XRP to eventually make a profit and cash out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm not in Bitcoin to cash out. That's the difference here.
Well, I think it's going to change the way that the financial market works, but I'm not going to say that I didn't invest in it with a view of making money. I mean, I invest in things that I think are going to succeed.
Yeah, but Bitcoin is trying.
Why would banks use Ripple to fucking move money around when the entire design of it presents the opportunity of consensus failure when they can just use Bitcoin?
Because Bitcoin's slow, expensive, doesn't scale?
It's not for a fucking bank transfer. 10 minutes ain't shit, and it's fucking damn cheap.
I think you've got a very different view of the world then. I mean, when you can start doing transactions in under seconds, that opens up a whole different world.
You mean like over Lightning Network?
Well, if Lightning Network ever takes off, yeah, but we've already talked about the centralization of Lightning Network.
No, we haven't. You've interjected an unbelievable number of straw men and demonstrated your complete misunderstanding of it.
Well,
let's look at
why not use XRP when it's already there and working and tested for like the last 5 years?
Because you have to trust Ripple Labs.
No, you don't.
Because the entire system is prone to consensus failure just by how it's designed.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. We've already gone over this.
Well, yeah, let's not do this again. Let's just let the fucking public hear it, and then that's that.
Sure thing.
All right, Hammer Toe. It was a good one, man. At least you came on here.
Good chatting to you guys. Been confrontational, but it's been fun. Chat to you soon.
Yes, man.